Fantastic.
Okay, welcome everyone to Clutch Mentality. My name is Chris Shokov. I am here with Ryan Aponte, and we're here to this whole podcast started because Ryan is a super passionate baseball coach, mentor. He loves the psych part, the mental aspect of the game. As myself, as I'm a coach, but I'm also a mental performance consultant, waiting to get certified through the Association of Sports Psych. And we decided to just join forces and create Clutch Mentality. It's a podcast based on info, things that we've been through as coaches, players, and then we talk about how we work with our players and how I work with my clients on how to develop a clutch mentality. So that's a little bit about me. I coach, I'm a mental performance consultant. I still play sports way too much to this day. And I'm just really excited to start this new platform with a good friend of mine who's also amazing coach, trainer, and all those things. I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, for sure, bro. I appreciate you having me for this project. I mean, when you first brought up the project, I thought it was exactly what the kids need, parents need, because for a long time, all coaches, trainers focus on the physical, but I think now more than ever, a lot of light is being shed on the mental part of the game. So, like you mentioned, I majored in psych. The fact that you pursue further education with sports performance and the mental side, I think that's also really cool. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and so let's just jump into it. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So behind the scenes, we were talking about what did we want this first episode or first talk to be about, and we both came to the conclusion that this huge aspect of awareness in players and coaches, and everyone in everyday life, I feel like that is the first stepping stone. I don't know if you want to share how do you like to bring awareness to the kids you coach, and how did you bring awareness to yourself when you used to play?
Yeah, for sure. So even just the principle of awareness, it's so simple, but in the first part, it's, I think, the thing that a lot of young athletes just miss out on, right? Just being aware of either the physical side of their performance or the mental side of their performance. So I think now what I see is a lot of more focus is being done on the skill set side, but a lot more focus has to be done on the mental side. And I think that's one of my biggest strong suit as a coach, is that sometimes I see myself more like a psychologist than I am a strength and conditioning coach or performance coach, because a lot of times they just need to focus on the mental, whether it's lack of performance or their personal lives, that they might be going through certain things as well that they have to learn how to cope with as well.
Yeah, and I feel like you coach high school and other youth sports, and I coach high school as well. And I feel like as coaches, we're almost mentors, especially being from like the Bronx, being like having kids from all different backgrounds and skill sets. And the worst coaches that I see are the ones that just prioritize winning, right? Because we're developing young men, young women, if they're playing baseball, if they're playing softball, whatever sport they're playing. And we have to understand that this game of baseball, if we're talking specifically baseball, basketball, any sport, it's really like a game of life, right? So, in baseball, you get up 3 times or whatever the case is, right? You can hit the ball 350 feet, but the left fielder makes a sick grab.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's a bad hit? Right? Should the coach be yelling at their player because they got out in a big moment? Absolutely not. So I feel like that's why I'm so happy that nowadays people are really starting talking about the mental health aspect of youth coaches, because they're really like the stepping stone. Because how many people do you know at the age of 10 or 11 just quit a sport because they don't want to play it because they've had a bad experience with a youth coach? Or even a parent that just prioritizes winning. They just kind of want to keep asking, they want to be a coach on the sidelines, right? Or get into the car and be like, listen, you should have ran a little bit faster. Absolutely not, right? Your job as a parent is just to support, right? You get into the car, statistics say, please don't talk about the game unless your child brings it up.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to hear that. Right? If your child brings it up, they want your feedback. They want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
Right? And then you could hear them talk and be like, listen, I love to watch you play. I love how you hustle. Right? We want to focus. A lot of times, a lot of youth sports, especially youth teams I work with, they don't focus on things that they can control. Right? I like to put a little bubble, right? Like I make them write on paper, or we get like a huge whiteboard, make like a one circle, and inside that circle is things that you can control. And then on the outside, right, it's all the things you can't control.
Yeah.
Right? And it's amazing how fast they could come up with things they can control, right? Which is like really surprising. And so they're like, how you show up? Okay. How you hustle? Great. And then it's like all the things you can't control. Referees, someone making a really great catch, your teammate making a mistake.
Yeah.
Right? And then I asked them, okay, all these things on the outside, how many of you let that affect your game? Right? And let that come in on the inside? Everyone hand goes up, right? We've all had that experience of not realizing in the moment, wow, this umpire just made a bad call in my opinion. I'm bringing this onto the field.
Right.
And then what happens? We already know what happens. Ground ball gets hit, you make an error.
Right.
You're bringing it onto the field. Now you bring that error to the dugout, and then to the dugout, and then you become a bad teammate. And then then your teammates get down, and then you go up to bat. And then of course, what do? You strike out or something. You just bring in that energy with you, right? And what we can't control is how great of a teammate you're being. Like all those things, you can control that.
There's so much stuff that I would say that a teammate could do that statistics don't show, right? So it's just, there's many facets from being a teammate that understands their role, or just being a teammate that understands the goal of the team, right? So, I do something similar where I paint two pictures. It's literally a small box. I label it a small picture, and then a bigger box, label it a big picture. It's like the small picture stuff are, for sure, us, being a top team in the league, or us winning the chip, us making playoff stat part, right? That's the small picture. But the bigger picture, of course, the bigger picture are the things like, all right, developing a better person, developing a young man, your discipline, your time management skills, your accountability, right? You commit to the team is being there. It's being there whether it's still cold outside or it's hot outside, or, all right, early in the morning or late at night. It's making that commitment to the team that's important. So, those are the two bigger pictures that I like to paint to athletes, again, helping them be aware, like how awareness is important, but like you mentioned, what are the skills or what are the steps that someone can implement in their daily routine to be more aware of what they're doing?
So, no, that's a great strategy. And how does a team take to that?
Yeah, I think you could almost see the sense of quote unquote awareness, right? It's like, oh, it's actually a simple logic, right? This is what matters, but this is what this is going to help with in the long run. So it's just sometimes you just got to paint things out, right? Sometimes there's different types of learners. Learners that are, photographic memory. There's learners that can write it down better because they can remember it better. Some people just like to, learn things in different ways. So finding a system where you can implement it that makes sense for majority of the team, I think it's important in the long run too for awareness.
Yeah, no, and I want to ask you something because I have this issue. I've had this issue everywhere. I've coached for like 10 years. I've had this. I'm sure you've had it too. Those players that I don't want to say need to get pushed a step down, right? I don't want to say ego because I love confidence. Right? I love when someone's like super confident inside, right? But when a player thinks he's the best, right? But as a coach, because you're not thinking like outcome based, right? You're thinking like that swing looks a little this, that you're doing a little bit of that, right? You're nitpicking, right? When you have a great player, how do you feel like their awareness is, and like how do you have that conversation of, hey, yes, you're doing great, or you're not that great, but here are the steps here are the steps that you can take
Yeah.
to get this better. Do they realize that this is not like something's not their strong suit or something like they think they're just great?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a big step for a coach to be aware of that situation, because it's going to be the coach that comes up to the player and says, all right, listen, that player has to be aware of what their actions are. So what is a little bit too much, right? Like, is too much pimping a home run, or, or doing something more extreme than that? Because certain behaviors has to match the culture of the team. And of course, the coaches, they set that culture, right? From the high school level, the coaches, the seniors, the juniors, it trickles down. They set the culture of that program. So at a certain point too, I think as a coach, it also benefits that player, letting that player be themselves a little bit. But I think there has to be a fine line between, all right, this is our goal as a team. This is what we're going to allow. This is what we're not going to allow all the time. So you have to find your middle ground. And so do I as a coach, right? So this is okay. This is not okay. This is where we draw the line. So have your fun, but stay within these rules that we follow.
Yeah, I love that. I love the drawing the line.
Yeah.
Right. Talk to coaches a lot, and you have teams that are a little over the place, but it's like, where's your line?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And where's like, all right, I'll give you that leniency, but we don't cross that line.
Right.
Right? Like, what are our values as a team? What's our culture? What do we want to stand for?
Yeah.
Talking about culture real quick, my favorite thing to do is, I do this with a lot of basketball teams. I wanted to start doing this, football, stuff like that. We get a football, or Miami Hurricanes, right? They have like the chain, right, on defense when they get a pick. That thing brings culture, because it's like, who resembles not just the outcome, but the characteristics of the team. Mm-hmm. So I was working with a basketball team, and I got them like a really nice basketball with their school colors. And I was like, all right, write your goals, but what you want this team to represent this year, right? When you walk off the court, right? What are the values and the morals and the characteristics of this team that you want to implement on and off the court? Yeah. What are your words? So they all write it down. And then I just go, this ball is like the sacred ball of the team. The person that gets this ball at the end of every game has to represent all these characteristics. Yeah. So it's not just, I dropped 30, right? I was the best player on the court, but who was the best teammate? Who hustled the most? Who was diving for loose balls? Yeah. Who was boxing out, right? Who are doing the things that may not go on the stat sheet, but all the things that you can control, and that people aren't really recognizing in the stands, but the team recognizes it, right? Doing those small things. And that's what makes a team culture so great. Right. And being aware that if I could focus on these things that I could control how I hustle, I could control diving for loose balls, I could control boxing, right? It takes zero skill to do any of those things. Right. Right? It takes zero skill. Yeah. And so but
also, I think, I'm sorry for cutting you off. I also think it works both ways too. A coach has to be aware of, all right, this is the culture. This is our culture. This is not our culture. So it works both ways too. I think a coach has to be aware of what is their culture, if they have any, right? Are they aware of the culture in the program themselves? Do they like it? Do they not? And then that player, like I mentioned before, fitting in that culture where they're still able to have fun, but not disrespect.
That is the coach's job. It's the coach that won't let them cross that line, right? That represents the characteristics that was on the basketball, right? And then your culture is going to be great is when the athletes start upholding the culture, keeping people accountable of things that we don't want, right? Showing up late, not hustling on the line or hustling for a ball, or those are the things when players could do it, and not only do it, but do it respectfully, right? Where it's not chaos, right? Or people getting offended. Yeah. That's when you build the culture of just excellence, no matter what happens. Right. Right. And that's difficult to do, but it does start with the coach. And it definitely starts with, this is what we do, how we do, and what we like to do. And this is most importantly, why. Yeah. Why we do it. Because if you don't understand the why, the team is not going to follow suit. Yeah. Because it's like, why do we have to clean up the dugout? Why do we have to shake hands? Why do we have to go into a huddle after a game? Why do we have to do? right? If the team doesn't understand why we do what we do, then there's no point because you're not going to be able to create the culture.
Yeah, for sure. Understanding the culture and the mission. So if you're an athlete, how do you make yourself aware of, all right, I need to be aware of my skill set, which I think it's pretty easy, right? Nowadays, your skill set is, with coaches and their eye of talent, right? Throw a couple ground balls in baseball, take a couple shots. Like you can figure out your skill set in a couple games or a couple practices. But how can you be aware of your mental side, right? How, as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old for the first time, understanding the pressure of a game when that game changes from, this is no longer like fun, this is kind of like serious competition, and then dealing with that, whether it's adversity of success or failure.
Yeah. So I just want to make some nerves are fantastic, right? Yeah. Like we want to, if you're not nervous for a situation or a game, it's like, do you even care, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's okay to be nervous. So embrace the nervousness. But when I'm talking to a client about like their nerves or like their awareness, right? It's about, I like to tell them, be where your feet are. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I was working with a pitcher and during like those 3-2 counts, big moments, just told me straight up, like I get really nervous and I think I'm going to lose control and hit the bat.
Yeah.
You don't want that. Right. So I tell him, I'm like, are you trying to hit the bat? Of course. And so we worked on a couple of things. Understanding your light signals, right? So it's like, tell me a time when you were at your best. Right. And what was happening? What did you do that day? Yeah. Did you wake up in the morning? Right. Did you wake up in the morning, eat a good breakfast? Did you get to the field on time? Did you stretch good? You had a good warm up? Like what was happening in that day that you felt like you were operating 10 out of 10?
Yeah.
Great. So we understood what happened that day. Right. And then it's like, what happens when you get onto the field and you're playing? Like do you feel like you're like shaking, like you're scared, this, that, and then red light is I'm out of control, right? Like I can't bounce back from this mentally.
Yeah.
So I like to do a lot of, specifically with pitchers or batters, we do a lot of routine work. So what is your routine? When I get onto the mound, I like to, fix myself. I warm up pitches, 2 fastballs, a curveball, 2 more fastballs, ball gets thrown down, right? And then when I'm on the mound, and I'm getting a little bit wild and I'm like that green zone starting to go away. What are things can I tell myself? What can I tell myself? Right. Yeah. So self-talk is important. Like if you watch the Olympics right now, like you see it right before they go on, right? What are some action words that you can control when you're on the mound or when you're up at bat that you could just focus on? Right. Yeah. So I get up to the mound. All right. Move fast, right? Head straight. Right, like attack.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. Can you do all those 3 things?
Yeah.
Deep breath. Go. And then you just repeat and you repeat and you get real focused, right? Like you're eyed in on the catcher's glove, deep breath, right? And you get really pinpoint a target. So when it comes to like awareness on the field in those pressure moments, it's really about knowing where you are in the present moment. Right? Being present in that nervousness, being present in that moment and taking control of the moment instead of letting the moment take control over you.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think that it also comes down to understanding that having a negative mindset, it's not going to help you do much, right? Even after the fact of failure, being aware of how do you talk to yourself, right? If it's not even just the lack of self-talk, but even if you're using self-talk in a negative way, it's also not going to help you, right? The self-talk could be like, oh man, I suck. I can't do this. So there's the self-talk in a positive way, but also maybe like exactly your examples of, all right, a mechanical cue or, a goal in mind that, you've been working on during the off season or before the race. So just keeping those things in mind, I think that's what leads to execution, but also, the physiological sense of when your heart is racing, right? Self-talk of, like maybe breathing exercise or maybe like some type of like number system that can bring your heart rate back to like that normal. Because I've been there where like you're in that nervous situation, your heart's just beating. So just being aware of that and like, all right, maybe now you have to like breathe a little bit, or something that motivates you or reminds you to slow down a little bit, slow everything down.
No, that 100%. If you ever watch a baseball game in a big moment, right, Bryce Harper or something like that, you're gonna watch two things. You're gonna watch. I swear to you, you're gonna watch an at bat from a different standpoint. You're gonna know if someone works for like a sports psychologist. Most likely is if in a big moment they call time or they step out and think that they're looking out. Right, I guarantee you, a lot of times people like to use focal point training. So it's like if I had a bat, say like a Marucci bat or whatever, and I stare at the Marucci sign, right? I'm just like, I'm zoned in that moment, like everything else. Some people like to zoom in on the foul pole, right? Like I get locked in on that foul pole. It just kind of brings you back in to reality, right? After like deep breath, right? You slow down the heart rate. All those things, it's just, it's crazy, right? Because you're just like telling yourself, all right, man, breathe, right? But it's funny that you talked about, negative self-talk because the brain doesn't know anything, right? Like the brain knows what you tell it to believe, right? That's why meditation, visualization, all these things are like super important where you are, because you could meditate or you could visualize and a bat. You could visualize making a shot. We all visualize hitting the half court shot or hitting the walk-off home run. Right? We all have done it. Right? There's, I forgot the baseball player, but he was like a rookie, and I think his first at bat, he hit a home run. He was like, they asked him afterwards, what made you, how were you prepared for this at bat? It's like, I already did it 1,000 times.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? He did it 1,000 times in his head. It takes no visualization. It's crazy.
I remember Nick Swisher. I think Nick Swisher used to like look up to center field for the focal point. But yeah, visualization is important. I mean, it's kind of how like VR works. If you ever use that VR headset for that baseball game, baseball VR or whatever, you know, you're visualizing. You're not really on the field. You're just visualizing what's happening, and then you're just pressing, a button. But you do the same thing like in your living room. Just visualize the game, use your imagination, and I do that a lot with the stickball. Right before my next at bat, I'm kind of like visualizing like how the ball would bounce. I used to do the same thing in baseball, visualize, how that pitch is going to come. Sometimes I used to guess where fastballs were going to be too, but visualizing the ball coming through that zone mid at bat. So I was more prepared for when that ball does come.
You were prepared because you've done it.
Yeah.
You already hit the ball in your head 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Right? Without you even realizing it. And I think that's like the coolest part about it. But when we talk to like athletes about awareness, it's just heavy of like, all right, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Like, what's the goals? How long, like, is it achievable?
Yeah.
What is it going to take? And what, more importantly, what is it going to take? What's going to sacrifice? What are you willing to sacrifice for it?
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to start hitting home runs. Okay. What does that require? You hitting the gym, doing strength training, right? Working on your swing. What are you willing to sacrifice? A couple of hours on the weekend hanging out with friends, right? Maybe going to bed a little bit earlier to wake up at 7 a.m. to go work out.
Yeah.
Like all those things.
Yeah.
So.
And also being realistic, right? So being aware of, fine, these are your goals. Be aware that you're not putting in the work, right? Or being aware that if you really want to achieve those goals, these are the things you have to do. And I think that if you create almost a structure of, all right, these are the things I'm doing now, and if I'm not achieving my goal, then things have to change. Or if, I am achieving my goals, this is my agenda, this is my routine, stick with it and, don't burn out. Don't lose gas.
Right. Don't burn out because it's not going to come overnight. What makes elite mindsets and elite players, it's not like I'm just who I am, right? Not everyone is a John Carlos Stanton or Aaron Judge who like they put in work, but they're also 6'8", pure muscle. Like they hit the ball harder than anybody else, right? But it's the process, right? 1% better every day, right? If you hit the gym or you worked out or you worked on some swinging, 1%, like a little bit that day, you're still better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really the grit and the grind and the process that makes excellence. Because don't chase perfection, because perfection is unattainable. Like you're never going to be satisfied with that. Right. But you could chase excellence. You could chase being better than where you were yesterday because you knew where you stood yesterday.
Right.
Right. So it's like doing that little by little by little, you're only going to see growth in your players as a coach or as an athlete.
Yeah.
Right. So enjoy the process, right? Make it fun, make it enjoyable. Like don't make it a job. Do it because you love it, not because you have to do it.
Yeah.
Because you want to do it. And when you want to do something, that's when you will be great. Like I want to golf all the time. So I try to golf all the time if I can. Right. Right. But am I good? No, but I want to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So it makes it a little bit better.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
So have a process that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, picking up from what you last said, how can you be aware of a parent who's quote unquote parent or player who's like delusional, right? So everyone of course wants to be a major leaguer for sure. But at what point, or D1 player, whatever the case is, but at what point does a player or parent themselves has to be aware of, all right, listen, like, this is where you are right now. It's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. This is where you are right now. But, you know, in time, you follow these steps. This is where you could be if these are your goals.
Yeah, I think if you already have like that elite mindset, I think you already know the deal, right? Like you always have to continue to get better. I was when I coached a 7U team all the way till they were like 11 or 12, right? And we were dominant in that 7 to 11. I know it sounds crazy, but we were like really strong because they were great players for 7 to 11. And the thing I said since 7 all the way, they're 12 now. Once the field gets bigger, they're not going to be that good. Yeah. Once everyone gets bigger, once puberty hits, everyone is the same. Right? Like you might have great hand-eye coordination at 7. That's cool, bro. And that small kid isn't that good yet. But when that kid grows and he's 12 and you're 12 and they're there, now everyone's working, right? Now it's like who works the most, who loves the game the most, who wants to put the hours in. And I think having a realistic mindset from the jump is like, just watch the game, right? Like have a conversation like, hey, this is what you do well. This is what we need to do. This is what we need you to do to get better. Yeah. You throw 60 miles an hour right now. That's great. I love that for you. Are you happy with that? Good. Okay. But if you want to go play high school ball, right, you need to do this. And I think just always having conversations of like, I'm really proud of you in this moment. You should be proud of yourself in this moment. But if you want to get to this, you have to do this. Yeah. And just like always just being honest. I think, sometimes we're like we're too nice. Like coaches, sometimes they don't want to like hurt feelings. But you don't have to hurt feelings. Yeah. Right? Like you don't have to say like, oh, you're never going to play. That's weird to say. You're like, hey, listen, it's going to be hard. The field is getting bigger. Because I feel like this happens with a lot of like 12. Once that 12, 13, 14 hits, because the field gets bigger, it's like the only sport where everything gets bigger. Right. Right? Like basketball, the ball gets like a half an inch big, right? Yeah. Like it doesn't really mean much. Right. But baseball, the field gets bigger, you have to get stronger. Yeah, you run more. Right. The balls that you were hitting to the outfield are pop-ups in the infield. So I think it's really like, all right, you're killing it. This is what you're doing really well. This is where you need to be for that, right? This is where I see you're struggling in, or this is like you're doing well for here if you're happy with it, but we still need to continue to work, right? It's just a constant process. Yes, you throw really, really hard on a 46-foot mound, right? But when it goes back to 60 feet, and literally just put them to 60 feet, throw the ball, throw it, see what happens. Right.
On the opposite end, how detrimental you think it is for athletic development, personal development, if you're not aware, just not being aware of anything? Because I've seen some.
I mean, I don't know. I think there's, I mean, it could be detrimental. I mean, or it could be, it depends. Like if the kid thinks he's really that great and he is that great, you know, he might be a little cocky, but like who's to say not, right? Like sometimes that confidence in someone that's not aware could really drive performance.
Right.
Right? Like the ultimate belief in yourself could be fantastic. Right?
That makes sense.
You know, like if I think I'm the greatest thing in the world and that's how I deliver myself as someone that I pride myself on these things. Like I get the job done. I hustle. I move. I run fast. I do all these things. And they have the skill, right? They have the power. They have the ability. Cool. Right? That could drive them. That could be really good.
Yeah.
You know? But for those who aren't strong enough, those who need that little extra push, that think that they're great because they're playing maybe not the best competition, there's no reason to like kill the confidence, right? Like you want to support, hey man, you had a great outing. Yeah. You had a great outing. You did great. I had a kid that, you know, I coached charter baseball and charter baseball isn't that strong, but I had a kid that threw decently hard and he threw strikes. When I tell you he struck out the whole team, like, no, he had 18 outs, I think he had 17 out of 18 strikeouts. Yeah. Right? Which is, you think, God level. Yeah. Right? But I was like, bro, you know, you're not playing D1, right? Like, we're not throwing hard enough. Right. Right? If you want to throw hard enough, this is what we have to do. Right. And he accepted it, but I wasn't going to ruin his moment. Yeah. Right? Like, you want to support the people that aren't aware, but be like, this is where you are. But here's the statistics. If you want to play D1, this is the percentages. This is the height. This is the power. Right. This is the distances. This is what the average D1 player is doing. Yeah. Right. And so it's like, how can we get there? Yeah. Do you want to get there? Right. I had a track star, I guess you could call him. Right. He ran fast. He wanted to run like D1 track. You know, I think he was for 100 meter. He was running like a 11.2 or something. Yeah. Which is pretty quick. But down like the average D1 is like 10.1, 10.2. Right. And then Olympics is like 9.6. Yeah. Right. So like you might be able to run like a D3 level, but I don't know if you're able to run on a D1 level unless you actually get to work. Yeah. You know, and I think that realization helped him realize like, oh, maybe I should do this. Yeah. Or maybe I should like get on the track more. Yeah. Or this and that.
Yeah. I think it's very important to start with this concept of awareness because just being aware in general on the field, off the field, on the recruitment process, right? Like exactly where you're going with that. Where, all right, I want these, this is my dream school. I get that, but which way right now do you want to approach that? You can go to your dream school and just maybe be a student, or if you're good enough, you can go to your dream school and then be an athlete, but just be aware of where you are as an athlete, or nonetheless being also aware of where you are as a person. Like if you know you're not good with time management skills, maybe not go somewhere where, you know, you're going to have to travel far into traffic, count for traffic or whatever the case is. Take better notes, like journal. I'm big on journaling. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like today I did this, or just like, you know, Monday through Friday on a monthly, you know, with a monthly schedule, month of July, month of June, August, September. You know, take little notes of what you did daily, or take little notes of what you try to do and didn't get done, from, you know, keeping count of like food. If the goal is to gain, write down what you're having on a consistent basis. So not only you can see of what you're having, or maybe what you shouldn't have, or what you're not having that you got to take more of if you're trying to lose or gain. Same thing on the practice side. You know, if you want to become a better pitcher or a better, you know, receiver, whatever the case is, how many times a day are you actually taking reps? Or what type of reps are you taking? What environment are you practicing? Being aware so that you can actually, you know, get better fast, you know? Right. Because especially if you're in high school, there's not a lot of time left, right? And then the older you get, the less time you actually have in anything, you know, respective sport, nonetheless, where you only got 4 years of high school ball and then maybe 4 years of college ball, and then if there's any pro level for you after that.
Right. Yeah, no, it's hard. I think it's the number one thing before you start your goal, before you start anything, just asking yourself, like, where am I at?
Yeah.
Right? And if you don't know where you're at, ask the people that you trust the most around you.
Yeah.
Ask your brother, I'm sure her brother, mother, sister, teammates, coaches, they probably won't lie to you. So if they're all saying a similar characteristic of you or they're saying a similar thing, they're probably not making it up.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a great way to start before you actually get going.
Yeah. If you were to categorize awareness into everything that we just spoke about into certain, maybe 2 to 3 points, what were those points? So what would those points be in everything that we just spoke about awareness?
Okay. So I think when we talk about self-awareness, I think the number one thing is starting out where you are, where do I need to get better, how, why, what, like ask yourself all those things. And like the self-awareness aspect of sport, right? Like, this is where I'm at. I want to do this. This is what I need to do. This is my situation. I think awareness on the field, right? It's two different things, right? So being where your feet are, understanding when I am getting emotional, right? My nerves are getting the best. My emotions are getting the best for me on the field. Understanding that would like increase your gameplay by millions, right? Learning how to self-talk, learning how to breathe. So I think those 2 points of self-awareness, where I'm at, this is what I got to do, this is who I am, this is where I got to get better. And then environmental awareness on the field. This is like big moment. I've trained for this. I know how to talk to myself. I know how to focus. I know how to regain my focus. I know how to recover from a bad situation that I got a little out of control of. I think if you're able to do those 2 things, you're going to be able to see a lot of growth in yourself. Yeah. And also just be aware that you're not going to get better overnight, right? 1%. We're chasing excellence here, right? Not people, you weren't born excellent. You worked towards excellence. Yeah. So just understand that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's perfectly said. I would say, going back to that thing I said about the parents, right? I hope there's parents out there that can listen to what we're saying, look up some tricks and tips on their own, because they're already in their player's life, right? They're in their child's life as an athlete, right? So just being aware of these things that we're saying, tips for being aware of not only of how their child is playing, but acting outside of the field, and then for themselves as well. Like, is there anything that you're doing as a parent that's hindering your child's progress as an athlete, or, I'm actually taking good steps of advancing my child's performance as an athlete?
Yeah. I think parents, such a tricky, like a slippery slope sometimes when it comes to coaches and parents, right? It's like a little weird. But I think parents, your job is just to support your child, like, don't give them tips unless they ask for it. Just support, give them as much love and care, because you don't want them to bring a bad game over to the house, right? You just want to, that they played bad. You don't have to tell them that they played bad, right? Most athletes are really aware of how they played. If I went 0 for 4, I know I went 0 for 4. You don't have to reiterate that I went 0 for 4. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. I know. Yeah. Oh, my error on second? Yeah, I know. I was there. It. I made it. Yeah. Thanks, bro. So I think the thing is just, hey, as a parent, you make sure that you could kind of get on for things that they can control, right? They can control being a good teammate, how do they treat others on the field? Did they hustle on the field? Did they run out to first base? Did they run off the field? That's what they can control, right? And if you want to get on them for something, you get on them for that. Yeah. Parents, you support your kid, that's all you do. And if you coach your kid and they're happy with that, then when you're on the field, you coach your kid. Yeah. Right? When you're practicing with them, coach your kid if you're the coach. But other than that, off the field, outside the lines, outside the court, outside all those things, I loved watching you play. You did a great job. I love how you hustled. I love how you moved. I love how great of a teammate you were. Right? Enforce the things that they could control. Enforce the things that are going to make them better people.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. No, good stuff. So
yeah, and if you watch this and you have any questions, you could always reach out and we can answer questions. I think that could be pretty cool.
Yeah,
that could be a cool moment. And just two opinions, some based on science and based on things that work for us. So yeah, I think it would be a really cool situation if you guys have any questions or you want to share any stories or you need any help. Where that's what this is for.
Yeah,
right. It's to develop mindset for everyone, coaches, players, parents, whoever needs it, wants it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think once we get more episodes in, we're going to be able to provide a lot of good stuff on the mental side of the game and mental side performance to a lot of people. So I appreciate you considering me and putting me in this project. Man.
Yeah, man, you did all the work. I'm just here, man. I'm just here for a good time. That's all, man. Thank you. All right. I guess it's time to wrap it up. Like I said, if you have any questions, reach out. I hope you guys gain some insight or gain some awareness on today's pod. This is Clutch Mentality. Have a great day.
Yeah.